it kind of fights that philosophically in my head, but I'm not doubting it. I bet for what he's doing, I bet it's a fantastic thing.
Right. Everything is source dependent, right?
Yeah.
Listen, there's nothing you could do about autotune these days. Like it's part of, like, people are used to hearing people in pitch.
And that's absolutely true. But I also feel like people are also getting a little bored with perfection. And I think,
yes.
And there are ways to, not get to the note so fast, or like leave that a little bit there, a little bit, or this, and using a graph and drawing it in, rather than just using it snapping to a grid. There's ways to get more humanity into music. And I feel like I see it even in people's Instagram posts. You see people programming beats with a really weird like swagger swing. And it's like people are definitely tired of like, 0, 120, 240, 360, those numbers, like, after years and years of everything being perfect, I think people are ready to kind of stretch out a little bit. I'm noticing it. And even in our own productions, we had to wean ourselves off perfection. Sure, there's a period in the 2000s I listened to certain things, and it's like everything is just so perfect. Perfection, it's overrated. You listen to some of the stuff that I grew up with, Pink Floyd. You think about Dark Side of the Moon. I mean, that's not on a grid, and it's friggin' incredible.
No way.
So yeah,
for sure.
Now I sound like the old guy again when I say that, but no.
I mean, I grew up on that stuff also, so I'm with you. I'm a Beatles, Pink Floyd, Zeppelin guy all the way.
Awesome, yeah. Well, there's room for everything. And bands that take it, like say a band like One Republic, where everything's perfect, but it's still amazing. It's like right. There's no rules. That's one thing I love about music. There's no right or wrong.
Yeah, when we're getting started, it's easier to go down the perfection route of making everything perfect, and then as you kind of grow, you realize I don't necessarily want this. Like now it's too, but it's too banal. Like I've been listening to the Steely Dan record, so now I want everything to sound like exactly how it should. But then it becomes vanilla, and
Steely Dan is a good example of people that made music, perfect, but better than perfect. It's like,
right.
Like
they had the musicianships to
the space
to push.
between the E's and the A's is where all the swing lies, and like there's a million places to place a note, over a quarter note, and all the people that they used, like Chuck Rainey and Bernard Purdie and Steve Gadd. I mean, the grooves were just. They're
so good.
Yeah, so greasy and thick and like unbelievable. And like I heard the story on a podcast not too long ago. Steve Gadd was talking about that was his first take on Asia that he did.
I think I heard that also.
Yeah, it was his first take. He was just kind of warming up, and then they're like, "No, it's fine, it's great." And then like I think it was like I don't know, a week later, he came in and they were mixing it, and he was like, "Who's that?" He was probably kidding, but he's got a great sense of humor. I'm a huge fan. I love his work with Chick Corea and all the pop stuff. Paul Simon. I think Late in the Evening is one of the greatest grooves ever. It's that Mozambique does that.
I'm blanking on that song, but I'm it's the Paul Simon song.
Yeah, Late in the Evening. Yeah, check it out. It's like
which record is it on?
One Trick Pony. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That groove is just nuts. It's like I had to study it. So I'm into studying like different ethnic things, like Cuban percussion from like Wilfredo Reyes in the late 50s. I get inside that stuff, and I'm really into like having things like sort of have a swagger or a swing. And that's a science. It really is amazing. I remember getting into an argument with somebody. I was doing an article for one of the magazines, like EQ or Electronic Musician or something. And in the article, I was talking about in the future, there'll be like templates that will be able to analyze all the notes and figure out exactly why John Bonham's feel is the way it is. And then you'll be able to quantize audio like to a human grid. And so like I was talking about this is like the early 90s or maybe mid 90s. And the guy got mad. He said, "What are you friggin' Thomas Edison or something? That'll never happen." He got really angry.
Wow. Super defensive.
Yeah, it was weird. But like years later, I mean, you have all these groove templates, and there's ways to shuffle things around and make things feel like however you want, So, technology has come so far, I mean, back when I was working on records, we didn't have a visual. It's like if the vocal was ahead, you're like, playing with, a 10, 12 millisecond delay. laying the vocal back on another track and like trying and punching in on the words to get it to feel right. You could spend a couple of days just getting a vocal to groove the way you want it to. It wasn't like today where I think my funniest Pro Tools quote, we were in Nashville and somebody said, "That groove doesn't look right." So that's where it's all come to.
Oh my God.
Yes.
That does speak volumes for the modern music industry. Man, I'm so jealous of maybe it's the wrong word. But it's just, it seems so amazing to come up doing audio with only audio, like...
Yeah, it's weird.
How many
like
of us mix
now.
with our eyes? we mix with, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not even, like, obviously we're using our ears, but like, you see the analyzer when you're opening the Pro Q3 and you see, exactly where the the fundamental of the kick is and where the bass is, and you could just kind of figure it out with your eyes, like you don't necessarily, and then obviously you use your ears to figure it out, like to get it 100% dialed in, but...
Yeah, sometimes it's, you listen to, say, like a classic record, like, say, Fleetwood Mac Rumors, for instance, like on a song like Dreams, you have that dong, chick, tuk, dong, chick, tuk, dong, chick, tuk, dong, and you listen to that groove. The way the kick and the bass fall together, it's not perfect, but it's better than perfect. It's like,
right.
And the stories that they went through, if you read Ken Calais' book, it's like what they went through. They were almost all the way through the whole album, and then they decided to throw up the original reel from the basic tracks. They had the drums run a safety reel, and they had been beating the tape up for like a year and a half or whatever, and like all the cymbals sounded like this. They were like, "Oh no." So they had to fly all the original drums from another reel back onto the master, but they didn't have a synchronizer back then. So they had to just get two 24-track machines and start them at the same time and drag their hands on the wheels and then punch in bar by bar on every track, every drum track. It's just amazing. That's one of my favorite records. It's just so
great
incredible.
record.
Yeah, you can never get tired of it.
Yeah, the analog days, the dedication to the craft. I think also what was awesome about the 70s, specifically like the 60s and the 70s, is that like I think music was the pinnacle of culture then. Whereas today, maybe TV or movies are or even more so. And just like everybody was so invested in music in the 60s and 70s. Like a phenomenon like the Beatles could never happen today because not enough people would be that into music to get that into the Beatles.
That's a really intelligent statement, and I've heard it voiced in various different ways, but that was a really great elevator pitch for it. The way you just described it, yeah, no, it was really good because there's people like Bob Lefsetz who has his I don't know if you know the Bob Lefsetz letter. It's an industry letter, and he rants and rants and rants about the good old days and what's wrong.
Sounds like something I should get on.
Oh yeah, you would enjoy it. He's over the top. I'm a huge fan, but yeah, he to quote him, wax rhapsodic about the passion of music in the old days. And it's true. Somebody said to me the other day, I heard this rapper. It wasn't a rapper. It was like sort of a pop thing. And it was the same one I was telling you about earlier. There was like 3 notes in the melody, and it was da 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 da. It was like this, it was like an ice pick in my ear, basically. And I said that, and my friend, who's a real smart producer, actually, his name's Garvey J. Josh. He plays with Devo now. And he just has a great outlook on the world. He says, yeah, you know what it is, dude? In our days, all the people, like music was driven by the drug culture. He said, like, so people were in psychedelics and like heroin and cocaine. It's like their minds were fueled with all this crazy stuff. He says, now it's Adderall and antidepressants. So everything just sits in the middle. And I'm like, it was like, it kind of hit me. That particular track definitely sounded like that. But anyway,
wow.
That's a pretty far out way to look at it, but there's something to it.
Yeah, and I guess it's influenced by trends, and maybe the trends come from that.
Yeah, trend. Yeah, who knows? Yeah, it's all speculation, but it's wildly true. That the visceral aspect of lying on your back, listening to Pink Side, Dark Side of the Moon in its entirety, with no pauses. I remember when my niece was about 19 or 20, when iPods were a thing. And she would you watch her scanning through songs, she'd be jumping from song to song. It seems like people don't really listen to entire songs, never mind albums.
Yeah. Hey everyone, you may have heard me mention before that I recently started a Discord server for the podcast. If you want to join the conversation over there, you can find a link in the show notes or on the homepage of this podcast at secretsonics.co. In the coming days, I'm going to be sharing a sample pack there with some of my own personal samples that I use all the time in my productions. This pack will only ever be shared on the Secret Sonics Discord server, so I hope to see you there soon. All right, back to the episode. You know, what's amazing about audio, and that's why I love podcasts, is because when you're in an audio moment, like you're just fully engaged. And I think when things become visual, you don't have the same attention span. So like I think like when I listen to a podcast, I'm totally in the zone. If I'm watching a YouTube video, I'm distracted by all the other tabs that are on my screen.
Interesting.
When something is visual for me, I'm just not as in touch. So if I'm in an iPod or a phone or something scrolling through music, it doesn't have the same connection. But if I put on a record and say, okay, cool, now I'm doing dishes and I'm listening to this record.
You're going to listen to the whole thing. You're not going to run over there and move the needle. Like, you know.
Exactly.
And that's a really interesting point, you know, because, you know, that's maybe why vinyl's had a comeback, you know.
Yeah.
That might be one of the reasons. I always love the, I don't know if it's nostalgia. I'm not sure that vinyl sounds all that much better. Like people will argue all day long about it. But I think there's a nostalgia, and there is a kind of a warm, gooey feeling when you have a good turntable and good power amp and good speakers. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it is really fun to put on a record.
Yeah.
I personally don't have a phonograph at the moment, but maybe someday soon. But I have friends here in Israel who have, and you know, like my buddy Jacob, who's been on the show, actually, you know, he's putting out a record he's like, you know, serious about vinyl, and he like waited like half a year to get it printed and the whole
cool.
spiel. And it's like, you know, that's like something physical that you could like sell to people, and like, you know, it's like a real like even if you don't listen to it, you listen to, let's say, maybe on Spotify, you could still like have that memento, and you could put it up. And
absolutely,
you know?
I have a long history of sampling off vinyl and manipulating vinyl. I mean, I'm not like an amazing turntablist, but I love to manipulate tools of me. If you go on my Instagram profile and you scan through, you'll find me, you know, running like a turntable through like Chaos pads and, you know, Federation Red things where they you know, runs through filters and it's all timed to the groove like automatically. And like I'll do a whole bunch of stuff on a turntable and record it to a few tracks in Pro Tools, and then later go back and find like these cool little moments that might be just part of a transition. You know, it's not so much of the wickety wick. I like to find like actual musical bits that like could be one or two notes, and then, you know, you manipulate them, and you know, it's fun. I'll do crazy stuff like a guitar solo through like a bunch of plugins that make it sound like you're scratching the guitar solo. I mean, I just love like experimenting, you know, with a lot of different techniques and stuff.
Gear.
It's pretty endless. And I have like a collection of really bizarre records. Like I have like these production records from the 70s. They were like, I don't know, 20, 30 albums. And it was like some radio station that's long gone. And it's like nobody is ever going to know what any of these sounds are. And there's like timpani and chimes. And I mean, you know, and it's just incredible. Like what in a bin at a record store, what you can find. You know, and if you manipulate it in a way that turns it into something completely different with effects, it's now yours, and nobody ever needs to know where it came from.
Yeah,
I know that's
awesome.
not the best copyright law approach, but
yeah. I feel like I you know, I'm coming from like a musician's background as like a bass player, and I feel like for me, I still struggle with sampling because I feel like I should be able to create the sound by myself.
Yeah, that's cool.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if you struggle with that. I mean, obviously you don't. But
no, I mean, the percentage of what I do with samples like that in the 90s, it might have been like 10% or 15. Now it's maybe 5 or 3. You know, it's like very, very much.
But it's the ear candy stuff that you add to that adds the spice to the record.
Yep. Yeah. Sometimes it's a cool like a timpani roll with scratches on it. You know, there's
cool.
It's something about it. Just, you know, it just adds something.
Yeah, getting it from the vinyl and not the splice like everyone else.
Yeah, yeah.
I was gonna say in terms of like, you know, the music needs to be less perfect, or we're in a phase now where things are moving past that maybe.
Yep.
And I think maybe it has a lot to do with also just like the last couple of years that we've all been living through, and now what's happening in Ukraine. It's just like the world has just turned to shit.
Yeah.
So, like, I think people are ready for music that's a bit more
thought-provoking.
Aggressive. Thought-provoking. I don't want to say aggressive, but like actually, you know, is more than just like, you know, beats, numbers, polished pop music, you know?
Yeah, no, it's true. I think, and there's a lot of really great, innovative alternative artists, and you dig a little bit deeper on Spotify, you can find just some amazing music. You know, people that were inspired by Radiohead and people that were inspired by the Beatles. You know, it's all out there. You just got to dig a little deeper. It's not going to be on the top surface. You know.
Yeah, absolutely.
For now,
but apparently the algorithm